What's up, folks? It's Monday again. Let's talk about the meta. Let's talk about tournaments, things like that, and talk about maybe the new hope in the standard meta. Yeah, let's talk about it. What is up, everyone? Aeneas here. Welcome back. So yeah, let's talk about the meta and let's talk about some other interesting things going on. So right now in standard, um, the daily meta is about the same. Zori soldiers, mono red, toxic, yada yada yada. Best of one is all aggro. That part hasn't changed. Um, and the only really new thing for this week, Naya Humans has kind of moved up a little bit. Be a little bit better than, well, I wouldn't say better than, but on par with the other aggro decks. So Naya Humans, Zori Soldiers, Mono White, Mono Red, all of those very, very strong in best of one, very solid. Yeah, and there hasn't been a really good contender for best of one. I also thought it would be good to look at the meta overall, not just this week. So if we just look at the meta in total, pretty much same story. Only thing Esper Legends is also doing solidly well in best of one, but still the aggro decks are just dominating best of one right now. So if you love aggro, play best of one. That's all I gotta tell you. Best of three, on the other hand, another story altogether. So we've got Esper midrange as kind of like the really dominating deck in best of three, even in the daily meta. And people started to realize that it's better than Grixis. For a long time, the daily meta was like Grixis, Grixis, Grixis. But people are finally realizing, hey, Esper is actually better than Grixis. So you should be playing Esper, which, interestingly enough, could shift the meta a bit, because we might see less Invoke Despairs and more just heavy creature-based decks. But I don't know if that will translate to best of one at all. Might be good news for people who play best of three, though. All right, and then if we look at the meta for the week, still Esper midrange is really high, tier 1, 60%. In best of three, and then mono red, mono white mid range, Rakdos, Grixis all, and Azori Soldiers all just right below that, 56%, 57% win rate. So not bad, but Esper is kind of the clear winner in best of three right now. Just too good. The mana's too good, creature's too good, value is just too good. It's kind of what happens when Wizards is leaning all in on this commander style of creating cards, where everything has to be a legendary creature because it could be in commander, and everything has to have some effect when it enters the battlefield because it's good for commander. And yeah, we just see that bleeding into our standard now. So not saying they should never do that, but I think they went a little bit too hard on that. I hope they pull back a little bit in the next few sets, but we'll see. All right, and then same thing. This is the overall meta, not just for the week. Esper, very strong. Zori's Soldier, strong. Another version of Esper. Mono Red. Pretty much everything is doing fine. And then Grixis and Mono White mid-range and Selesnya Toxic are kind of like the tier below that one. Okay, so that's the standard. Not much has changed there, but you'll see that there's some interesting stuff coming up, which I'm very excited about. So let's talk about the biggest tournament that happened over this weekend. And you'll be very surprised to see who got first place at a recent tournament. So this is the Pizza Box Open. They have this every weekend, very large tournament in standard. And wouldn't you know, Sonio got first place. Sonio is a YouTuber who plays a lot of MTG Arena. They're kind of unique because they don't talk at all in their videos. Yeah, so very interesting. They don't have their camera or anything like that. But yeah, they come up with some really cool brews. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're misses. But they do love to play control a lot. And look at this. They got first place in this very large tournament with a Jeskai control deck, like we've never seen before. I don't know anyone who played this style of deck, and they did very, very well. They, yeah, it's playing Jace, it's playing Wandering Emperor, Teferi. AO is a little bit strange to see, but I guess it's big creature, hard to remove, gets you a value when it dies, probably finds you a planeswalker, something like that. And a little bit of sweepers, a little bit of counterspells, a little bit of removal. Yeah, just pretty much what it says, Jeskai control. And they went 8-0, so didn't lose a single game. Very respectable. So this is very strange, to be honest. I mean, miracles can kind of happen, but 8-0 is very respectable in first place. A lot of times you see these like unique decks that people randomly spike a tournament with, getting like second place or third place, or maybe they get first place but they lost one of their games. But going 8-0 is pretty dang respectable. It means it has a very good shot against all the decks in the format. So yeah, this might be one to try out. It might be the control deck of the format. And second place, Toxic deck. Third place, mid-range. Grixis mid-range. So rest of it seems relatively normal. So they just beat the normal standard meta. Pretty sweet. Could be something with their sideboard is just really well like positioned, maybe, but yeah, really cool. So I might try to adapt something like this for best of one. We'll see if it works out, but very cool to see, and good job, Sonio, on that. All right, another tournament. We got a Rakdos Reanimator deck getting the first place. So this is Lily, Bloodtithe Harvester, so kind of your standard Rakdos. And then, of course, Atraxa is the top end. That's what they're reanimating. That's what gives them the value and wins them the game. So we're saying, yeah, Rakdos. Sorry, not Rakdos. The Atraxa decks are still good. They can still beat up on those mid-range decks. I think they don't do as well when there's too much aggro in the tournaments, but look, by the looks of it, you know, there's no aggro here in the top parts of this tournament. We also saw that Esper has kind of had that resurgence recently, where more people are playing the mid-range decks. So yeah, maybe that's your chance to take Atraxa and go like a tournament, is when everyone's playing mid-range. Alrighty, so those are the two really big tournaments over this weekend, but doesn't stop there, because this person, MTGA Brew Lab, another very interesting brewer that I check out on Twitter every once in a while, and they mentioned about this blue-white artifact deck that they were having success with, 73% win rate in best of one standard. And I saw this deck and I thought it was very interesting, and their win rate was very high, so you know that's pretty sweet. But when I played it and thinking about it, and when I tried it out, I had a few concerns about the deck, and so I ended up making my own version of the deck based on theirs. So this is my version here, and essentially how it works is you get enough artifact synergy that your Michiko is going to be turning your creatures into like 8/8s or 11/11s or things like that. You also have life gain from the Steel Seraph, which can be very good against all the aggro in the best of one format. Yep, basically Steel Seraph is kind of a house in those aggro matchups. Actually, I changed the list a little bit today. I didn't post on Twitter yet, but I went up to 4 Steel Seraphs because I think Steel Seraph is just basically wins you the game against any of the aggro decks. It can't be hit by Go for the Throat. It also dodges the cut downs. And usually it comes down late enough in the game that they've used most of the removal on other things. So yeah, it's just kind of a house there. So you put down a bunch of little dorks, 1 mana creatures, Skrelv, Swooping Lookout, Hotshot Mechanic, drop your other stuff, and then you finish off with the Steel Seraph and the Michiko to just win the game. So yeah, really cool deck. And same for me as was for the Brew Lab. About a 70% win rate against the whole meta. I pretty much shot straight up into Diamond, and you know, making good progress towards Mythic. Yeah, so it's a good deck. So that's one of the new hopes I think for standard is this artifact deck that people haven't really tried out, and it's solid. I mean, it beats all the aggro decks. So what? How much more can you want in best of one standard? And then yeah, as we saw Sonio here with Jeskai control, that's another hope that I have that maybe control can be good in the right matchups. But maybe it's only good in best of three. Not sure, but still very cool to see. All right. Before we wrap up, I mean, it's been a little bit of a slow Twitter week, but I wanted to talk about the MTG stuff that happened recently. So there was a tournament this last weekend, the Arena Championship 2, and it was a historic tournament. And they kind of gave us the breakdown of what they're seeing in these tournaments. Kind of gives you an insight into historic as well. And we see that Jund is one of the biggest decks being played with the kind of broken alchemy cards that are there in historic. So that deck is a little bit unfortunate, but it seems to be a really big part of the meta. Kethis combo made a comeback and also did pretty well at the tournament from what I hear. We also see a bunch of the reanimator decks doing well with this one has Atraxa, but I think a lot of times they use Sphinx of Foresight. Is it maybe the one that lets you cast a spell for free? And then there's like these heavy discard Rakdos decks, and of course Azorius artifacts with the Retrofitter and the Nettle Cyst and things like that. So that's kind of the format in this tournament, and also a good representation of what's going on in historic. Of course, you got a few outliers like Phoenix and the new Hammer Time deck that is just recently been created. Jeskai Creativity. Yeah. So historic is still pretty diverse, but I think Jund is a little bit of the dark horse right now. It's very strong, very hard to beat, and the alchemy cards are probably tuned a little bit too powerful. So hopefully we see some changes into that soon. I think Jund took down this tournament. I guess it doesn't have the results on this one, but yeah, maybe you'll have to check it out and see. I also want to take a look at the standard format based on what they have presented because they talked about the format based on the tournament results that they were having. So we see that Grixis is the largest number of submitted decks in all of the official tournaments. However, it is not the one that is doing the best. As we saw in other places, the Esper is actually the strongest deck in all of the tournaments, the official Magic tournaments, with a 60% win rate. There's a few other decks that did very well, though, like the Toxic deck is doing well, Azori Soldiers is doing well, Rakdos Aggro is doing well. And then I guess you can say Grixis is doing okay. It's like 5th best, so it's definitely not great, but it's not bad either. So yeah, it's a little bit surprising to see. I mean, before this week, none of the meta was showing that Esper was like the best deck, and none of it was showing that it was the most popular deck. Um, it wasn't bad by any means, but it was never like the top deck up there. So yeah, this tournament results shows Esper is pretty much by and large the best deck in best of 3 standard right now. So yeah, pretty crazy. Uh I wonder if that's gonna have any impact on like bannings or I probably not. I think Wizards probably doesn't think anything is in particular is too strong that they would need to ban it, but yeah, very powerful. The only other thing is like Esper is probably the only deck of these like 5 in the top that got anything new. It got Skrelv and anything else? Maybe not. I think that's it. So it's Skrelv. It's like the only addition to this deck, and all these other ones. I mean, Toxic is a new deck, so okay, that's not fair. That one's new, but Soldiers is not new. The Rakdos aggro is not new. It's just Shieldred, Invoke Despair, that kind of stuff. And then Grixis mid range is also pretty much the same thing, just with some Grixis cards in there. Um, yeah, so None of the new cards really making it, and the only one that did make it kind of bumped Esper into the tier 1 position here. Yeah. All right, well, that's kind of it for what's going on. I think we can see that standard is settled, and even historic is somewhat settled and decided. I mean, with John kind of being the scary tier 1 deck right now. Um, we do have some light though. There is a new set coming out in just 2 days, 21st. We have the Innistrad Remastered set coming to Historic. I think it's also available for drafting, so if that's your cup of tea, you can do that as well. But it has some very cool cards in there that I think will be great for Historic, so I am looking forward to that. Um, Namely for me, Snapcaster Mage, but there's also like Grizzlebrand, and I think there's a few Planeswalkers and a few other interesting Innistrad cards, so we'll have to see how that shakes up Historic, and I'll definitely be trying a few of my Historic decks again. Maybe the Bolas deck with Snapcaster could be good. Not sure. Definitely the Dimir Clock deck or the Dimir Deerhulk type deck could be good with Snapcaster Mage. Um, yeah, so lots to try out for there, and we'll have to see how that goes. But that's it for the Monday metagame update. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are you tired of standard? Yeah, let me know what you think. Until next time, see ya.